This time we will begin our first panel. I'm excited to invite to our table here for our first dialogue, Mr. Terrell Bonds, who is the CEO of the Gary Housing Authority. Mr. Bonds, come join us. We also have Ms. Angie Paul, from Sojourner Truth House, who will also join us. Mr. Terry Seljan from the Catholic Charities, Executive Director, Archdiocese here. Looking forward to our conversation. We all know that housing is a tremendous challenge in our region. The cost of housing has increased significantly, especially since the pandemic in 2020. We also know that new home construction and affordable home construction has been severely underperforming in Lake County and in Gary, Indiana. We also know that paired with these housing trends, there are severe employment trends. There are challenges with the public school system, and there are challenges with infrastructure, right, as property tax dollars have decreased. And we've had to be more creative in how we manage our funds, how we solicit low-income and affordable housing, but also market-rate housing, to ensure that there is a diverse mix of accessible housing that will draw folks to our region and to our township, but also retain population within Calumet Township so that we are a sustainable population. I'm excited that we have with us, as I said, as they move to the front, Mr. Terrell Bonds, the Gary Housing Authority, and he just a few days ago joined me in being a Hoyer and earned his master's degree at Georgetown University in real estate development. I give Mr. Bonds a round of applause. But he brings a long history of working in the housing space in Chicago, in Cook County, and also right here in Gary. We also have Mr. Terry Seljan, who is the Executive Director of Catholic Charities, which is based right on Broadway, in our city, in our township, and we're looking forward to hearing more about what Catholic Charities is doing in the housing space. And our very own Angie Paul, Executive Director of Sojourner Truth House. I believe they have a march that we do every year that is coming up very soon. And they are providing a variety of services that support individuals who are housing challenged or housing insecure. And so we are happy to have each of you here today. I want to ask, starting with Mr. Bonds, that you offer 3 to 5 minutes each on your perspective and what you are seeing in Calumet Township in Northwest Indiana when it comes to housing, accessibility, affordability, and availability. Start with you, Mr. Bonds.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Good morning.
Forgive me, I'm a little hoarse. Watching the basketball game last night. But I'll do my best. I'd like to thank the Calumet Township Trustee, Ms. Ty Atkinson, for inviting me, as well as Mr. William Godwin, a good friend of mine. I'd like to say hello to all of the elected officials in the room, Bernie, Mike, and Mr. Tolliver. If I miss anybody, charge it to my head, not my heart, and everybody who's coming. Housing is a passion for me. I have been working in this industry for 23 years now, I think, and it's always an ever-evolving challenge. To answer the question in terms of accessibility, there is a housing stock shortage across the nation, not just Gary, Indiana. There's not enough affordable housing. There's not enough market rate housing. There's not enough housing, period, to answer the need. I often travel as part of housing organizations. There's one called NARO, National Association of Housing and Redevelopment Officials, and FADA, Public Housing Authorities Directors Association, and we have conferences across the country. And the one thing that never fails is when I fly into a city, as I'm traveling from the airport to the hotel, there are various tent cities along the highways, underpasses, parks, not picking on a particular city, but Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, has it really, really bad. But I come home and I see the same thing. So one of the challenges that we often try to overcome, and it's difficult, is to provide the housing. But we don't have what everybody knows is the funding. And given the climate that's in Washington, D.C. right now with Congress, they're trying to eliminate certain programs that will provide that housing, which is a shame. But we have to, taking words from Mr. Godwin, find creative and out-of-the-box ways to still be able to deliver this need. Some people look at housing as a privilege. It is a necessity. Every person in the United States and the globe, the one thing they should have is a place to lay their head. I'll stop there, sir.
Thank you. We're following up on a lot of points that you raised. Ms. Paul?
Good morning, everyone. Also like to thank you for the invite. It is a privilege to be here. Working as the Journey Truth House, we see a gamut of things. We not only see homelessness, but we also see a lot of mental illness and addictions. And like Mr. Bond said, the one thing for us is affordable housing. Housing for our seniors. We got a lot of seniors that come through our program. Our youngest participant is 16 years old. Our oldest participant is 86. So trying to find housing and affordable housing for someone on a fixed income when the landlord is asking for 3 times the rent. You know, rent is now $1,500, $1,600. We're looking at 2 and 3 bedrooms. It's just not manageable for us. We do operate 2 permanent supportive housing units. We operate a 51 scatter site throughout Lake County, and we have a 60 project-based unit right here in Gary. Those both are funded through HUD, with us matching at 25%, which is very hard. It's very hard to keep the participants engaged because the average stay for one of our clients may be 6 months to a year for them just to get housing. So that is a crisis for us right now. That's what we're seeing. We rely a lot on donors. We rely a lot on, fundraising. Our walk is coming up June 14th. That money we use for client services. But we definitely struggle with the need of affordable housing. And that's what we're seeing with our clients. We try to partner as much as we can when we can, but the struggle is really for everybody. Everybody is facing the same crisis. So just trying to be creative and coming up with ways to make sure that these individuals are not only housed, but stable housing. So it's one thing to get them into a house, but making sure that they maintain that housing.
Thank you. Terry?
Good morning, and thanks to the Trustee's Office for inviting us here today as well. I agree with the 2 panelists here that the biggest issue in the area is affordable housing. As they said, that the increase in rents has been a significant strain on a number of families and individuals. And what we at Calumet Tree is trying to do, we're trying to be, the resort for them to stay home, housed, to prevent homelessness. And so one of the things that we do offer financial assistance, but a lot of that again is dependent upon what grants we're able to receive or what other additional funding we're able to receive to help that individual. Sometimes we're able to provide 1 month rent, maybe up to 3 months rent. It's about all we can. So when people come to us and see us, what we're seeing is they've had a loss of job or maybe a medical issue or just something in their life that's caused them to not be able to afford their rent for that month. So what we try to do is provide that the relief for them for that month so that they can still stay housed in their own community that they live in, that they don't have to go and couch surf or do anything else to that end. So that's what we're trying to do. But as everybody mentioned, with the increase in rents, the amount of money that we receive is going a lot quicker and a lot faster with just the sheer amount of increase that we've seen over the past few years. So affordable housing is definitely, I think, the main focus of what we need more of in this area.
Thank you. So each of your organizations, government, faith-based, both really faith-based nonprofits, one of the conversations we had in our meeting before the meeting was that organizations often operate in silos within our region. Each of you are providing different services, and there are many, many other organizations that also work in the housing space, either directly or indirectly. How often do you talk? How often do you collaborate? And what are ways in which, if you're not talking enough, can you do that better?
We definitely aren't talking enough. Our 51 scattered site throughout Lake County was inherited through Catholic Charities, so we've had that program for about 7 years now. But we definitely need to come to the table, collaborate, use of shared services, all of that, I think would work well with us, and that we should be communicating and working together more frequently.
Totally agree. And I guess when you say in the meeting, before the meeting, the Zoom conversation we had, and just for full transparency, one of the statements I made during that call was we needed that call to address the elephant in the room, and that is we don't work together. It's almost like a hot potato process. I work mine over here, and then when I'm done, it's yours, and it shouldn't be like that. And I don't think it's done intentionally. I think we're just focused on our own work, but unfortunately, that focus on our own work doesn't provide the collective collaboration that the residents and the citizens need. And that is a shame on us. And I take responsibility for my portion of operating in a silo. And from that call, I actually called William after the call and said, I'm glad you did this because it allows us to address this bad situation.
One thing that we talked about, before I get to Mr. Selden, is having each organization that's working in housing, and really all of these services, I think you'll see throughout the day, are interrelated, right? Our case management team will tell you, people don't just come with a housing problem, right? It's also utility bills that may be overdue. It's also food access. It's also, I need a job or a better job. So the services are really interrelated. One point that Terrell made when he and I talked after the call is that we need to sit down as organizations and look at our policies, our rules, etc. Can you say more about that?
So all of our organizations are governed by some type of regulation, statute, etc. And we often will get requests for services, and what we'll usually hear first is we can't because of this, or we can't because of that. And I said what we should do is we should sit down together, put all of our regulations, policies, procedures, etc. down, and figure out how can we overcome. Okay, so I can go this far, Ms. Ball, and at this point I can hand the baton to you and see if we can layer these barriers so that there aren't any barriers.
Terry?
Yeah, I was just going to add to what Terrell said. We don't see each other as competition, but we are so focused on our own individuals that we're, while we're helping the community, if we, could combine our collaborative efforts better, I think we could definitely better serve it. It's just, it's unfortunate that we haven't, come to that realization sooner, and that we are more siloed than we need to be. So I think there, again, coming out of that meeting, yes, I think there's a definite room for a lot more collaboration between just even the three of us and with everybody else out there, that to be a better service to the community.
Earlier during our MOU signing, I mentioned that the trustee and I met with Congressman Orban about almost 2 months ago now. And one of the words of wisdom he gave us, we believe in learning from those who've already been there and done that. People like Clerk Brown often reminds us of the importance of gaining that wisdom. He said it's important in your organization as a trustee's office. When people come to you for assistance, the goal is not to just say no. If they really truly need assistance, maybe we can't help you, but hey, I think Catholic Charities can. And I'm not just going to give you a sheet of paper and say, here's the address and the phone number. I'm going to pick up the phone and say, hey Sarah, I have a person at my office right now who needs housing, food, etc. He's going to be there, she's going to be there in the next hour. Meet them at the door. But you can't develop that relationship if there is no relationship, right? You can't make those connections. So one of the things, I haven't talked to the trustee about this yet, but I'd like to work with all of our nonprofit organizations and have informal socials, right? Where it's not necessarily a meeting, it's not a crisis, we're not trying to respond to an event that has happened, but where we just get to know each other as people. You work at Calumet Charities, you work at the Jewish Federation, you work at the Housing Authority. Know who's operating in the social safety net ecosystem. Everyone say that word, ecosystem. It's not a tree here, a flower there. All of these work together. They collaborate in order to provide that safety net for the residents of our township. So more to come on that. And we want to try to make that happen and have that meeting where we do sit down, look at our rules and regulations. Some of the things that we're doing, we don't even know why we're doing them. It's just because that's what we've always done. Now, there are some things, especially with the Housing Authority in the township, where we are mandated by statute. Some nonprofits, you get a particular grant. It says who you can give it to and for what purposes. But it's important that we're able to layer that and we do the work and not ask residents to try to figure out who can help them. So I think that is a great takeaway from even this conversation so far. Another issue that we see in areas across the country, as you mentioned so aptly, Terrell, is that zoning and density is a challenge. I know we have a few council members here. Trustee and I used to be on the council. Clerk used to be on the council. And one of the challenges is when people want to upzone, right? Or they want to move from a single-family residential to a 4-unit apartment building. Often you get emails and texts, I don't want that in my neighborhood, right? So there's this word called NIMBY, not in my backyard. Find them somewhere to live, but not over here, right? And we know that in order to increase the availability of housing, we can't rely solely on single-family residential housing. Number one, everyone doesn't want a single-family home. Everyone is not necessarily prepared to take on the responsibilities of a roof and a furnace and landscaping, right? But also, in order for us to turn around the trend of our losing population and to actually gain population, we have to have more housing, right? And so often you need 3-unit, 4-unit, and even larger unit buildings. One thing I recently saw in Los Angeles, they are currently building a Costco, where at the ground level there will be a Costco, a restaurant, some other services, but over, I think, 400 units of housing on top of the Costco. So you're seeing mixed use zoning, right? Where it's not just residential, but it's also a grocery store, right? So you're meeting a need that people have. They don't have to get on the bus, right? They don't have to walk or have a car. They can get access to food literally there. And of course, as part of that, it's going to have low-income designated housing, affordable housing, but also market-rate housing. And it's important to have that mix because we have very little market-rate housing. Because we reach a certain point where you're not necessarily wealthy enough to buy a full home. We have a lot of folks that are in that middle ground where they make too much money to qualify for any of the services that we provide, but not enough, right, to afford the type of housing that is available. So you have to have a mix of housing. All that being said, I'd like to especially get your response to that, Terrell, because I know not only are you working with your housing authority, but you have some residential development aspirations. Could you share more about that? And I'd also like to get your thoughts, Angie and Terry, what you're saying in response to the NIMBY problem that we have in this township and across the country.
Thank you. Housing Authority. I often ask this trick question in my interactions with colleagues, residents, just people in general. I want everybody in the room to close your eyes. Just trust me, close your eyes. I'm gonna say a word, and I'm gonna pick on a few people, and I'm gonna ask you what image pops in your mind when I say this word. Public Housing Authority. Now, everybody open your eyes. And I'm gonna pick on somebody, that's my sister in the room. Raylene, you know I was coming. What image, and tell the truth, was in your head when I said Public Housing Authority?
My first image was low income person, but the second one is always what you're preaching is combining to collaborate a mixture of housing.
Swing the mic right here. When I said Public Housing Authority, what image was in your head?
Actually, my childhood home.
Say again.
My childhood home.
Childhood home, okay?
As an apartment.
Come right here in the front. What image popped in your head?
I would say the same, we're actually neighbors growing up. So, yeah, absolutely the same thing.
Okay. Gentleman in the back with the black. There's a reason why I'm doing this. If I could take a little liberty, Madam Trustee, Mr. Gallup.
We like interactive presentations.
What came to thought was a community of apartment buildings, housing.
Okay.
I think everybody's trying to be politically
We're
correct.
trying to be nice. Right. And I'm gonna crack the
Say
egg.
what you
Okay.
really think.
Uh-oh, somebody sound like she's ready to tell the truth right here. Right here. Mm-hmm.
The first thing I thought about was where we resided for 6 years in public housing, Ivanhoe projects. So primarily, most people think when you say public housing as the projects. That's exactly.
I'm gonna pick on one more person. Come on, Ms. George. What image came to mind?
Like she just mentioned, Concord, Ivanhoe projects,
Exactly.
things like that, but you and I have had conversations, so I won't lower your cover, I'll wait till you
Exactly.
talk about it.
So, you all were being politically correct, trying to be nice. At the end of the day, the image that popped in your head was the projects.
With the bricks.
The bricks, the yards, the blocks. And unfortunately, that is oftentimes the truth. The word project actually derived from hood. It was literally called, let's try this project to see if it works. Thus, the word project. So, to address William's point about NIMBY, N-I-M-B-Y, not in my backyard. If I told you that I was buying, or the Housing Authority was purchasing, a vacant school to tear it down, to build some housing, 9 times out of 10, you think I'm building projects. Thus, the not in my backyard. And that's not the case. Let's face it, for any Bible readers in here, the poor will have what you always. You're gonna have to take care of them. But that's not the only demographic we have. Some folk can afford market rate. Unfortunately, a housing authority cannot use its public federal funds to build market rate housing. And that's where most housing authorities stop. Since I've had the opportunity to be the executive director, I've had an opportunity to go to other cities. Sometimes you have to get out of your comfort zone to see what somebody else is doing to learn what you may not know. A lot of cities across the nation have rebuilt their communities through the housing authority, but it wasn't public housing or the projects that they built. To Williams' point, they built mixed use, mixed income communities where you can't tell the difference. And what we have to do as a community is we have to be more welcoming and trusting, because there are different levels of funding, and I'm gonna stop, because I don't want to dominate the conversation. The public federal funds, you can't build market rate. But there's other funds that a housing authority has access to that they can uniquely build market rate housing. So when everybody is saying, why is that Terrell Bonds getting another vacant school, the GHA own everything? Here's the reason why. In order to try to provide the different levels of housing that the city needs, we need what's called congruent acreage. So you have the space to build. So you can build a mixed community. So I want to take this opportunity to be selfish to let everybody know the next time I ask you to close your eyes, I want you to think of a mixed, vibrant community. And I want you to use a new word that even Senator Todd Young used, and that's YIMBY, Y-I-M-B-Y, and that's yes in my backyard.
All right, we learned a new word. Responses?
Well, so as a nonprofit, we don't do any building, but we're running into that same thing. We're now in the process of trying to do 2 transitional housing, one right in our backyard in Gary and one in East Chicago. But unfortunately, we're on hold for a bit because of zoning. So we have to make sure that East Chicago wants transitional housing in their neighborhood. So we're praying that we get that. But outside of that, we don't really have those kind of issues because we're not trying to build. We don't have money to build, and unfortunately, our grants won't allow us to.
So Catholic Charities here locally does not have any type of housing, but there are a lot of Catholic Charities agencies across the nation that do offer these type of housing complexes. And I think that, you know, looking at it, it's something we've considered looking at. It's just not the right thing and not always the right time, but it's definitely a need, and yes, I think it should be expanded, absolutely. We need more of this in the city here, and just even within the greater Northwest Indiana community, so I think it's definitely something that really needs to be looked at and moved forward with.
Thank you. I want to get to, in a few minutes, we're going to get to audience questions. Wraparound services. I know that Senator Truth House, you do a lot of that, and I assume Catholic Charities as well. What are you seeing in terms of best practices in wraparound services for those who are housing insecure? And I want to say this as well. I think we often have a certain image in our mind as well when we say homeless, right? When we hear the word homeless, we often think someone in the tent, under the bridge, around the corner, living in the abandoned building. But you could actually have a roof over your head every night and be homeless, right? By the federal definition. It is insecure, it is not permanent. You're at the mercy of someone, whether they will let you live in their home or not. And a lot of our students who are attending our traditional neighborhood, charter, private schools, they are actually homeless. And that affects, of course, their educational outcomes. So as we think about wraparound services for those who are housing insecure, in the broadest sense of that term, what are you seeing as best practices within your organizations or that you've seen in other organizations?
The biggest one that we do for wraparound services is we have a food pantry as well, and actually and a mobile pantry that we go around with. And we provide a lot of wraparound services directly with that, and we'll refer them to our food pantry or refer them to our mobile pantries, or just even any other the pantries in general around the area. That's the biggest one that we do. We also try and refer them to a financial literacy organization that is going to be able to help them. It was something that we had in the past. Staffing issues, has not been able to us bring that back, but that's where we would refer somebody else to learn how to budget it better, learn how to prepare for unexpected expenses, learn how to prepare for that, if you're car breaks down and you need to repair it, and so you're paying for other basic needs than your rent. Well, we're trying to, some people believe that they can have that ability to budget better or maybe make a better difference in their life. But the food pantry is kind of the biggest one that we do. And actually in East Chicago, you say that we do have a number of students that are homeless that, we drop off food at the school and we do it in a discreet way that they're actually able to have a meal over the weekend in a discreet manner. So that is something that we do with, homeless students.
Thank you.
So we also operate a food pantry. We're the largest food pantry in Lake County, servicing about 300 people a week. So that is part of our wraparound services, as well as 2 blessing boxes that we have outside of Sojourner Truth House, which is for individuals for the weekend. So that when we're closed or they don't have access to the grocery store, they can use our blessing box. It's filled with non-perishables as well as personal items. Also within our center, we do offer a career service program. That program is designed for individuals that would like to do work from home or entrepreneurship. We work with the Purdue nurses so that our clients can have medical assessments. We also have groups anywhere from mental illness and addictions. We don't call them that because nobody has mental illness or addiction, so we have to be creative so that the participants will go to the groups. But the idea to have those groups inside of our place, our center, is so that the clients don't have to go out. Because we find that when they go out for services, they generally are non-compliant. So while we have them there Monday through Thursday, we make sure that they attend at least 2 groups as well as see their case manager. Anything that we don't do in-house, we refer them out. If we need someone to go to Edgewater, we need someone to go to Regional, we will refer them out. But we try to have the services in-house so that the participants are more engaged.
Thank you.
In our case, I would say not enough. I'm not sure, I am sure you all probably know, and I haven't seen her. How many people know Dr. Sharon Liggins? I need to reach out to Dr. Liggins because I haven't heard, I know she was ill, but what I'm getting at is she used to operate the Northwest Indiana Continuum of Care. And the Continuum of Care was the liaison between what's called the Balance of State, which is the state of Indiana, or ICTA, Indiana Housing and Community Development Authority, and the housing authorities for the sub-recipients of grants. And one day, Northwest Indiana Continuum of Care just disappeared. And with that disappearance was the services or the wraparound services that the citizens needed. So earlier I spoke about having to think and operate outside of the box. So how many people are familiar with W.E.B. Du Bois Library? All right, another property that the Housing Authority bought. I need you to put a positive thought in your head. It's not projects. What our idea is, we're moving our offices to the 2nd floor. But on the 1st floor, we're trying to create a one-stop shop place for those wraparound services. Oftentimes, our citizens have to go here, go there, go here, go there, and probably don't have transportation and have to wait on the bus. So our idea, and keep this to yourself right now, I don't want this out. It's taking some time to get there. It's a $17 million project. Our idea is to try to create or recreate that continuum of care. So when you come to the Housing Authority for those needs, you don't have to leave the building no matter what they are. And as well as partnering with other agencies that could come inside of the building and deliver those services. So that is what we're trying to do.
And it's funny you mentioned that as part of putting together the proposal to the trustee for us to do the symposium. I was trying to find information about the Northwest Indiana Continuum of Care and couldn't find anything. So I think that's also an area of opportunity for us to follow up on, to see who's doing that, how it could be relaunched, because that is a critical void that seems to be missing in our area. But that's another assignment for us, Brad.
If I may, Mr. Godwin, I do believe, to answer your last question, I believe ICTA temporarily or in an interim basis passed the duty on to what used to be called Northwest Indiana Community Action, or now Co-Action.
Okay.
And Co-Action has the continuum of care responsibilities.
I used to attend those meetings prior to COVID that were led by Dr. Layton. They were excellent get-togethers at least once a month of all sorts of different agencies in the area that provided housing services. I'm sure that Dr. Liggins is in her retirement at this point. We need a new leader to step forward and resume those monthly get-togethers. They were powerful. It is an entity that Co-Action has taken over, and I'm an employee of Co-Action. But the vigor has been lost. We need an entity up here in Calumet Township to take that on again and resume those meetings to better help collaborate and, you know, have a vision about new housing opportunities here where everyone can work together.
That sounds like a challenge.
I will publicly accept as long as I have some help.
Absolutely. Ms. George, and then I have one last question, and then we're going to have public Q&A.
Well, I was just going to mention that Co-Action is doing the coordinated entry part of the, what Continuum of Care is doing, but the new entity is called the Region 1 Planning Council. So you may want to reach out to ICTA to see who the Region 1 Planning Chair is. And I do know I was the past planning chair, however, the way that they had things run was not the same way Dr. Liggins ran it. So I do know that the need is there to do the old way. So again, I would just say reach out to ICTA and see how we can get things moving again here in our community.
Thank you. See what happens when you have the right people in the room? We can, this is again, I said, this is not entertainment. This is a working session, and that is what that looks like. I want to ask one last question, and then we're going to turn to audience questions, okay? If you, in each of your organizations, or as a nonprofit social safety net leader in Calumet Township, could do one thing, could change one thing, could start something, what would that be? You can go in any order that you desire.
Well, I think the biggest thing is that something we've already talked about is just the collaboration within each other, or each other's organization. I think that's the biggest thing that we need to do. We're all doing wonderful work. Just the collaboration, I think we could just expand the amount of work and the amount of impact that we have on everyone.
All right. Well, I kind of already gave you my one thing, and that's the one-stop shop. But I will give our mayor, Eddie Milton, credit and pick on Tashizia again. Mayor Milton wanted to create a housing task force to address some of the issues we're discussing today. And he actually wanted Tashizia and I to start the lead to try to get that to happen. So I think this is an opportunity for all of us collectively and with Madam Trustee to begin putting these things together, to put together this task force so that we can address these issues head on. I'd like to see that happen.
Duly noted. Ms. Paul?
Thank you. So with collaboration and shared services, what we really need is more shelters. I have individuals calling, needing shelter so that we can service them. We don't have enough shelters. We work with 3 local shelters right now, which is Missionaries of Charities, Lydia House, and Emma's House. None of those are family shelters. So if I have a mom calling me with 2 kids, I can't service her. Because by HUD's definition of shelter, of homelessness, that she needs to be in a shelter. So either I have to send her to Hammond, or I have to send her, Valpo won't take them, because Valpo will not allow their funds to assist someone who is a resident of Gary. Imagine that. But we don't see anyone that comes to our doors, we don't care where you're from, we will service you. So shelter space is what we need so that we can do the work, and we're not limiting people and sending them all around to go to this place, that place, or go to Hammond and get shelter, but try to find your way back to Sojourner Truth House in Gary so that we can give you the services. That just doesn't make sense. So we need more shelter space. We need more landlords. We partner with a lot of landlords to have a relationship with a lot of landlords, but we need more so they can understand the population that we work with and give them a chance for affordable housing.
And I think specifically you're saying you need family shelters that serve families.
We do, because, so if I have a single mom with a 6-year-old boy, she cannot go to missionaries or charities because they won't take boys over the age of 5. So that's the type of thing. It's not a mom that has 8 or 9 kids. It can be a mom with a 7-year-old boy. Lydia House is single females. Emma's House is for females who are recently incarcerated.
So is there a best practice or a model for family-based shelter services? Like in the region, in the country, that we could use either as the Calumet Township or any other nonprofit organization we have a shelter, but to make it fill that need that you're facing?
So we worked with Calumet Township for a number of years as a shelter. So maybe getting back to that, I don't know what happened with that, but maybe getting back with that, the relationships worked very well. We worked good together. So maybe trying to get that back and figure out where the gap was or what we can come together and make that happen. That works well for us. And it's right in our backyard.
Absolutely, thank you. So then,
There is a model in Indiana, ironically, in Fort Wayne, where Fort Wayne Housing Authority, I believe it was, or the city itself, used a hotel and did some renovation and rehab work, and they turned it into both a temporary as well as, I think, to some degree, permanent supportive housing shelter. So we're trying to duplicate the idea. Obviously, we don't have hotels around here, so we'll have to build it.
we do. We go ahead.
But that's one of the reasons. I think I'm gonna put myself in trouble again. Don't tell nobody what I'm about to tell you. We always keep this secret. How many people remember Dory Miller Homes? 268 units that was built in 1954. And a lot of people think that we were just tearing the buildings down because we don't care about people. No, HUD actually forced us to do it because it was too old. It met what's called obsolescence. Dory Miller sits on 19 acres, which is now vacant land. How many people remember the old Drew Elementary, now Watson Academy for Boys? All right, Housing Authority acquired that property. That sits on 12 acres. I just got authorization yesterday from HUD that we can tear it down. So the plan is to combine the 19 acres and the 12 to get the 31 acres. And the purpose or the intent, don't tell nobody, is we're flirting with the idea of building what we're calling a homelessness campus that will house a shelter for women, a shelter for men, a shelter for families, because what happens if a family goes homeless, you don't want to split them. There's also youth that are aging out of foster care that have FYI vouchers. But who's going to lease to a 19-year-old with no house skills, life skills? So our intent and our idea, don't tell nobody, is to see if we can build on those 30+ acres a homelessness prevention campus that will have all of these needs with an admin building and a center so that the services can be provided. Now that's a heavy lift, I'm gonna need some help. But don't tell nobody, keep that right now under the table. Terrell said he gonna build, now the poster be on this, don't do that.
Thank you. So this time we're going to take Dr. Furrow and other questions. We ask that you ask a question or make a brief comment, all right? So I see a few hands. Edgewater, we're going to start here. Ms. Bennett next, right here. right here. All right.
Hi, I want to know.
Could you say what your name and organization? Thank you.
My name is LaTanya Robbins, and I'm from Edgewater. I'm a counselor over at joining the new team. So my question is, I'm across the area, and I see all of these vacant schools, and they are prevalent online, being vandalized and inside, outside, and all of that, and being used for various reasons. I'd like to see or know what are the plans for these already standing buildings that just need rehab to be able to utilize and serve our community. It's just a travesty that they're sitting the way they are. Roosevelt, Lasky, Horace Mann. These buildings could be viable if the right people are sitting at the table. But the money where it should be. And I just like to know what's going to happen with that.
I'm going to give that one to Tara. Right.
Because nobody else up here owns schools. So, for complete transparency, the Housing Authority only owns Horseman and Ford, Emerson Spalding, Ernie Powell, and I call it True Watson. It's still true to me. The rest we don't. We have an assessment taking place for Watson. We're being told that the bones still may be good. Ernie Powell is pretty much shot. Emerson and Horseman has sustained so many fires, we don't know about the integrity. But we're waiting on HUD and the climate in Washington to say yes. I hope we do have some reporters in here because I want to push the field office to say yes. But as soon as they say yes, our intent is to either tear them down and build new, or see what can be salvaged and rehab and still build new to address some of these issues that we're talking today.
All right.
First of all, my name is Dr. Jenny Salve, and I provide home-based services and started home-based services in Northwest Indiana maybe about 30 years ago. I am so excited about this idea that the Township Trustee is doing. And all three of the people that stage have been my partners. What I mean by that is that services cannot be provided to the people in the city without coordinated services. And when the people who are what I call boots on the ground know what the services are. You made a statement before, and I think one of the problems that I see in the city is that everybody has a piece of one client, which is a real big problem. And attorney, you made a statement about the ecosystem and wraparound services. I do personally working, and I mean going to the homes, not just here in the county, but the race all around. I don't actually see coordinated wraparound services. Not intentional, but I think people are on their thing. Another thing I'd like to say is that whenever I come to meetings, and I own the council meetings, so whenever I come to the meeting, I hear non-for-profit. And I hear Edgewater, and I hear regional. But those are not the only two mental health services that serve the city. So there needs to be a coordination, not just those, but non-for-profit organizations that's working what I call the worry gradient. Those are people that need the same services that other organizations work with too. Another thing that I think is a problem because what I hear a lot of times is focusing on one population in this city. There's a lot of population that need the same kind of help that everybody else has. So I want to thank Trustee Adams for putting this together. I'm just so excited. I can't wait to get here. Because and I wrote letters to you, organization, because the population that we work with many times do not know how to access the services. And they need intensive case management. I mean picking up the phone and connecting because they can't do it. Another thing too, this population, this city has population of black culture, all right? So we got a lot of off-ramps, a lot of off-ramps. And it makes it difficult many times out of pride to accept the services because of cultural differences. And so what happens, the problem is recreated over and over and over again because this region has a lot of services that people don't know that they're here. I know you all, because I work with all of you. That's probably no organization within this city that I have not had to use for a client to get services. To join troop house, cafeterias. And so I just want to really say, can you look at bringing some other people to the plate? Not just the non-for-profits, they got a lot of information. So when you talk about change, do some more collaboration. Reach out to some other people that's doing some other things that people don't even know they're doing. So that's just kind of my statement. Sorry.
Joe, thank you. And in fact, I met Dr. Osawe when we were working on the mobile mental health with the council, so certainly appreciate that. Ms. Bennett here had a comment, and then Ms. Rutterham. Charles going to respond.
From Ms. Bennett. Very good point. The Housing Authority has a department called Resident Services. According to our bureaucratic rules, they can only serve our tenants. What we're doing is we're currently creating a system where we're calling them community services so that they can serve folks outside of the Housing Authority's footprint. We currently have about 90 partners throughout the county, and we're constantly looking to partner with more people because I need those partners to sell the services that we want to provide at the library. So if there's anybody in here who is a service provider, please give me a card or something so I can connect you with my team.
Right. Ms. Bennett.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, trustee and panel, for participating today. So the 23 census says that the median income for here is $38,000. And on average, there's 2.5 people in every household. If you were to say that, as is recommended, that you spend 30% of your income on housing, that would equate to about $930 a month. But what we know is for a 2-family or 3-family household, you can expect to pay in rent or mortgage on average around $1,400 to $1,500 a month. So even if we make housing available, to make it accessible, there has to be a filling of the gap between what people can pay and what it costs. What are we recommending, panel, is it ways to close that gap so as housing becomes available, people can afford it? And then if we can close that gap, we don't have to solely rely on the housing authority. We can also invite private developers to build housing, but again, that gap has to be closed. What is your recommendation on how we close the gap between what people can afford and what it costs?
Very good question.
I feel like y'all picking on me. Dana's correct. Even if the developers build the actual structures, that doesn't do anything for the income or the lack thereof. So for those who can't pay, that answer for the most part is going to be some type of rent assistance, whether that's a HCV, more commonly known as a Section 8 voucher, or some type of rent assistance. What I think we should do as a community is we should call on our elected officials and our legislators to continue to lobby, because right now, not picking on the president, but the president's budget is trying to eliminate it. And if that gets through Congress, it alone will substantially increase homelessness. So to answer that question, if their income can't support it, the only way to close that gap is with some type of voucher or assistance. And we need to call on our folk that we vote for to provide more.
Thank you, and I will just add that when we put our brochure together, that's in your packet, I asked the trustee, I said, let's not put our numbers in there yet. But I want that to be a dynamic process because we are in the process working with our chief of staff, our trustee, and our case management team of really looking at our own qualifications and criteria and how much our standards of eligibility, basically. And recognizing that with inflation, people's incomes have in many cases been stagnant, but the cost of housing, so what we're willing to give for a 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom unit, how is what we're currently doing aligned with the numbers that come from HUD every year, for example, right? So it doesn't make sense for us to say, we will offer you, just for example, $1,000 for a 1-bedroom or $800 for a 1-bedroom, and we know that it's going to be $1,200 or $1,300, right? So we're looking at examples like that where we can be more aligned with the actual annual cost of housing so that what we give out is actually a dynamic number that will be responsive to the actual market trends. So that's one thing we can do. I think also looking at our eligibility requirements, the flexibility we have as the trustee's office. Obviously, we have to follow state statute, but there is some flexibility in how much we decide to give and some of the qualification standards. So more to come on that, and we'll be announcing some things hopefully this summer. And when we meet again in the fall, we'll have results to talk about. But Ms. Bennett's question is right on point because it is extremely expensive, and many people's incomes have remained stagnant as costs have risen. Ms. Rutherham.
So my question, or maybe two questions, are a little bit different, but I live in this district, and several years ago I was riding the bus with someone who lived in the Lake Village apartments. So at that time it was like market rate apartments. And she was telling me that she had to move because they were going Section 8. And I know that there are other apartment facilities here that have kind of gone a similar trend, where we've lost sort of all of the market rate rental housing that existed in this community, and all that's left are single-family homes that are very expensive and not very affordable. So I'm kind of wondering about how do we, once we do have affordable housing, that maybe isn't just subsidized or is mixed, how do we make sure that we're preserving those spaces so that we don't, so that everything doesn't just convert to subsidized housing and we're kind of then losing housing again, in a sense?
I know that's a very good question, and I remember that issue. I know, again, we got to pick on you, Tara, because you were intimately involved with that as I know there's a reason why that happened.
All right. A little earlier, my dear friend William told you I just got a second master's degree in real estate development from Georgetown. And to answer your question, that was the reason why. Here's what we have to do. As a city administration, as elected officials, and citizens and residents, we have to be intentional. I'm about to open the box and give away some secrets. The answer to everything, or to the person who don't really understand housing, is let's go get a developer. You have to hear that. Well, let's get a developer. The developer is not your friend. The developer is not coming to the city because, oh, my heart goes out and I want to take care of you. No. They're after what's called a developer fee. Every project, 20, 25, 30, 35 million, developer pockets 3 to 5% of their total development cost. That's what they're interested in. The next thing is, to answer your question about Woodland Village, and you know this in real estate, once a property goes through what's called reversion, which simply means to sell, the new owner buys it, and the new owner needs to make repairs. You know what the new owner does to make those repairs? They go get what's called LIHTC, L-I-H-T-C, Low Income Housing Tax Credits from the state. Investors invest in the tax credits. The tax credits take up about 60, 70% of the rehab. Here's the problem. When a tax credit is used on a unit, that unit cannot go to someone whose income is greater than 60% of the area median income, which is why that person had to move. It happened at Woodlake Village. I believe it's happening at Lakeshore Dunes. It happened at Concord. There is not one non-subsidized apartment complex in the entire city of Gary. Why? Because the developer needs your poverty. The city of Gary's poverty level is exactly where a developer needs it to be to build these units. The city of Gary is also designated as a DDA, difficult to develop area. So the developers descend on us, telling us, oh, we want to take care of you, when they really just want to build our poverty. So, this is what I mean by intentional. The one thing a developer needs other than the tax credits are vouchers. Because the banks are not going to loan unless the developer can show in his or her pro forma that we can pay the loan back. Where do they get the vouchers from? So, here's what we've been doing over the past 5 years. My predecessor, Mr. Julian Marsh, when I was a deputy, taught me we have to start self-developing because we can intentionally control the mix. If I got the vouchers and if we have the property, then we can tell the developer, no thank you. And we can then take half of our vouchers or half of our tax credits or whatever the mix needs to be and build some units for our affordable families that need it. And then we can take our non-federal funds and build the market rate and create the balance. But it has to be intentional. We can't let a developer come and tell the administration, hey, I want to do this and do that. And then they come and do what they want to do instead of us telling them what we want them to do.
You have any other questions? Right here we have representatives from the Crisis Center. Also the former controller for the city, Mr. Lee Harper, back there, who's working at the Crisis Center here in, actually right down the street, here in First District.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sheena Beehead. I'm an HRD at the Crisis Center in Gary, right here in Miller. I had a question about private landlords because you talked about that. As a private landlord, I do have a house in Gary and several houses in Valpo. I just have a question. How are you incorporating, reach out to private, or how are y'all going about to reach out to private landlords to ensure that when residents age out in our shelter, they do go through a decent pipeline of it? Because earlier you mentioned you're trying to incorporate transitional living, which is a great idea. So our transitional living is going to be for aged out foster youth. It's a 36-month program. How we get our landlords, that was the question you were asking? Typically word of mouth. You know, sometimes the clients will even know, hey, I know this person and they said they have property. We kind of do a little research on them to make sure that it's a legitimate unit or the landlord is legitimate. We talk to them about the clients and then we kind of work it that way. We do have case managers that follow the clients for at least up to a year to make sure that they're paying their rent, they're paying their bills, no issues with the landlords. But again, it's all through word of mouth for us because we can't solicit. So we kind of just go by. If somebody calls us with a lead, we have a landlord, we just call them up, you know, and ask them, will they accept vouchers that we have? Or will they accept HUD payments? Because both of our permanent supportive housing units that we provide, those are through HUD. So it's 30% of the client's income. But it's two criteria that they have to meet: mental illness and or addictions, or they have to have a physical element. So that's kind of how we get our landlords. So if you know any, I will give you my card. Okay, please reach out.
I want to, before Terrell speaks, Ms. Renita Leslie with Broadway CDC. I know you've done a lot of work in this area, right here in the, I don't know what color that is, yellow, mustard. I'm sorry, I'm looking at you. Sorry about that, Ms. Leslie. Yes.
I just want to chime in on something. My brother Terrell, he made a great point when he talked about developers, right? And we had, to our experience on the council, we interacted with a lot of them as we were responsible for looking at PUDs and getting tax abatements, et cetera. Well, Broadway CDC is one of the champions of this community development. The executive director / CEO lives in this community, lives in the Port District, builds beautiful, I'm not gonna call them projects, beautiful homes, right, that are mixed income. Some do incorporate market rate housing to the point of what we're discussing here. So I would like for her to kind of give some insights in terms of the projects and her experience to this conversation as well. Thank you.
So, the Broadway CDC has been around for several years, since 1994. We incorporated in 1994. After having community meetings, 2 years of community meetings with the people of the Midtown area. And from that, we decided to develop single-family homes, new single-family homes, and new apartments. So the Madison Avenue townhome was developed. From that, the Washington Manor subdivision, single-family homes with subsidy. We cannot do housing in the city of Gary without subsidy, whether it be market rate, single-family homes, or apartments. We focus on new development because there are a lot of old homes in the city of Gary. That means we have to go out and find the gap money to subsidize so that people can afford them. In the city of Gary, we would love to have mixed income, but most of our young people leave. Thank God they're coming back, and our population is increasing. But subsidy is very important. What we have decided at the Broadway area CDC is to do Jumpstart Gary. Jumpstart Gary teaches people in the city of Gary how to develop, to be developers within the city of Gary. Terrell did say that people come, they look for cities like this to develop. We need to develop our own city. This year, in January, we graduated 16 people from the community of Gary to become developers in the city of Gary. And that's what it's going to take. So I just wanted to echo on to what Tim Carroll was talking about developers coming into our community.
Let's give you a round of applause. Thank you so much. I'm definitely hopeful that we have our October symposium. I definitely want you to be on the panel so that we can, again, as we work toward problem solving and creative solutions, we can expand this conversation. But thank you for the work that you were doing. We have 5 minutes, so Mr. Bones.
I want to say I used to work for Miss Leslie, so some of who I am and where I am is because of her, so thank you. What are we supposed to be doing now, sir?
You were going to respond.
No, I just going to respond to the landlord point in question, because we too look for landlords within our HCV program. So we often have landlords.
Say that, you said an acronym. What is that?
Housing Choice Voucher.
Housing Choice Voucher.
Program. So we often have landlord symposiums and outreach so that we can increase our landlords. So I'd be interested to get any information from you as well.
Thank you. So what we're going to do now is we wrap up this panel, and as we think about next steps, what our work will be over the next 4 to 5 months as we prepare to meet again in October and expand this conversation, report on our results, see what we've already done toward solutions. What do you see as your next step? And how would you summarize what you're taking away from this conversation today? We'll start with you, Terry, on the end, and work our way to Terrell.
Well, I think the next step is just, again, we've talked about here, is just the getting together and actually collaborating with each other. I think it's going to be the first start. On top of that, I think we're just going to, continue on with what we're doing and continue to support the community and providing the assistance we can or any other services we can. Just the main thing that, I'm taking away from this is that there's a lot of interest in this and a lot of a passion to get this done and to make this happen and to, have a successful strike in the community.
So for me, it is the collaboration and making sure that we stay connected, but also what I'm taking away from today is knowing that I'm not alone in this and there is support out there and we just gotta reach out and get it.
Collaboration is key. And before COVID, my predecessor, Mr. Marsh, he used to hold and gather a monthly partners meeting. And it used to be with us and the city of Gary and various departments, airport, school. We've always wanted to reinstitute that. And I think that's something that we can do collectively, is start having monthly partner meetings with the various government agencies, elected officials, and our partners, so that we can update each other and start laying down those barriers that we talked about to see how can we overcome them.
Absolutely. And just a few elements that I've heard in the conversation, we're going to look at doing some socials so that our different organizations and folks who are working in the community actually know each other as people. Where do you like to eat? Where do you go to church? Who are you? So that we can enhance our referrals, our interagency referral services. We also talked about sitting down and looking at our individual rules, statutes, regulations, and seeing where we may have to stop, but where can we then pass you on to better serve you. Of course, in the township, we are in the process now of reviewing our own standards of eligibility to Ms. Bennett's point, to ensure that the monies that we are giving out, your property tax dollars, right, that they actually align with the costs. We know that inflation is real, so that we're not giving people false hope, or we're not offering something that's not useful to someone if they can't actually get housing at the cost of what our market has, what our market shows for the cost of housing. What else did I miss in terms of our...
For those who were wondering, has nothing to do with this panel, Gary got the convention center. I started London, I'm sorry. I didn't want y'all to think I'm over here being rude. I'm over here texting like, we get it, we get it.
Thank you, Mr. Bonds. And I will just note that in a 3-0 vote, all three commissioners voted for the Lane County Convention Center to be right here in Indiana. We know that that was a very collaborative effort with both our trustee, who was former president of the council, and I know that Councilman Tolliver and all of you, everyone will be working together to make sure that it is successful. And so that is a wonderful win here in Calumet Township. I've been holding that for an hour. I said I'm going to keep the flow of the conversation going.
I'm sorry.
To distract. I'll see you at the golf course. Well, that is wonderful news, and we will be following up with all the great conversation that we've had today to make sure that it turns into action, right? So I also heard something about shelter services, that we have a need for shelters that serve families, right? It shouldn't be that a mother with a 6-year-old has nowhere to go, right? And that's something that we can solve. We also talked about the Northwest Indiana Continuum of Care and trying to determine what's happening there, work with Coaction or whatever entity is managing it to bring those meetings back to the forefront. If you do not have a folder, does anyone not have a folder?
I don't.
Okay, so Whitney here, has folders. If you did not receive a folder when you checked in, raise your hand. We want to make sure that you have an agenda and all of our information. As a reminder, there is a survey inside of the folder. We want your feedback, so as you hear the different panels, think about your thoughts, what you'd like to see, your concerns, etc. Okay, our next panel starts at 11:15.